Somewhere deep in the Amazon jungle, there is soil that has been growing food continuously for over 1,000 years, with no fertilizer, no chemicals, and no modern farming techniques. And the people who created it are gone, but the soil still works. This is called Terra Preta, and before this video is over, you are going to understand exactly how it was built, why the knowledge vanished almost overnight, and why scientists now believe it could be the most important agricultural discovery of the 21st century. But first, you need to understand just how bad the soil around it actually is, because that is what makes this story so hard to believe. When European colonizers arrived in the Amazon in the 1500s, they assumed the jungle could not support large civilizations. The soil was famously terrible, highly acidic, nutrient-starved, and structurally weak. Every tropical downpour washed away whatever thin fertility existed at the surface. Modern soil scientists confirm this. Roughly 95% of Amazonian soil falls into two categories: oxasols and ultisols, both of which are so degraded and so nutrient poor that conventional agriculture on them collapses within 2 or 3 growing seasons. Farmers across the Amazon today clear forest, farm it for a few years until the soil gives out, then move on and clear more. Slash and burn. The same cycle, over and over. But then researchers started finding patches. Dark, almost black soil scattered across the Amazon basin, near Santarém, near Iranduba, near the upper Xingu. Soil so different from everything around it that it looked like it had been transplanted from a different continent entirely. They called it Terra Preta de Indio, Indian black earth. And when they ran the chemistry on it, the results stopped people in their tracks. Here are the numbers, pulled directly from peer-reviewed soil analyses. Regular Amazonian soil has a pH between 3.5 and 4.2. That is intensely acidic, closer to vinegar than to healthy farmland. Terra Preta runs between 4.9 and 5.2. That shift alone transforms what a plant's roots can absorb. Cation exchange capacity, the soil's ability to hold on to nutrients instead of letting them wash away in the next rainstorm, is roughly 10 times higher in Terra Preta. 123 millimoles per kilogram versus 13 in surrounding soil. Available phosphorus, calcium, magnesium, potassium, all 2 to 3 times higher. Total organic carbon, significantly elevated. Aluminum toxicity, which quietly poisons root systems in most tropical soils, dramatically reduced. The result? Field studies and local farmers both confirm the same thing. Approximately twice the crop productivity of adjacent soils in the same environment. And it has maintained those properties for over 1,600 to 2,000 years. Not because someone has been fertilizing it, not because it has been managed with modern inputs, because of what was done to it, once, a very long time ago. And the soil simply never forgot. So who built this, and how? Pre-Columbian indigenous peoples across the Amazon, multiple groups across multiple centuries, created this soil through a combination of deliberate practice and the accumulated byproduct of dense, settled community life. Radiocarbon dating places the most intensive formation between 800 and 1200 years ago, though profiles at some sites date back well over 2,000 years, with traces at certain locations going back 5,000 to 7,000 years. The foundation of the entire system was a single critical decision. They did not burn their organic waste completely. They charred it. Slash and burn, the method used across the Amazon today, destroys biomass rapidly at high temperatures. You get a short burst of ash-based nutrients. They leach into the subsoil within a season or two, and you are left with nothing. Slash and char is different. Low temperature, low oxygen. Instead of ash, you get biochar, a stable, porous, carbon-rich material that does not break down quickly. Biochar that researchers have found in these soils, still functioning, still holding nutrients, still supporting microbial life, after 1,000 years in the ground. On top of this biochar foundation, they layered everything the settlement produced. Kitchen scraps, animal bones, ash, pottery shards, which are found so consistently in Terra Preta that archaeologists use them as a marker for the soil itself. Fecal matter, plant residues, not as a one-time event, but repeatedly, generationally, at their habitation sites, their hearth areas, their waste zones. Earthworms and soil fauna work through all of it, mixing and melanizing the layers until the dark anthropic horizon, in some sites, ran 50 to 200 centimeters deep. What they had engineered, without naming it, was a self-sustaining fertility loop. The biochar holds nutrients in place, The nutrients feed the microbial community. The microbial community feeds the plants. The organic matter cycles back into the soil. Terra Preta has 25% greater bacterial species richness than surrounding soils. It supports more earthworms, more mycorrhizal fungi, more nitrogen-fixing organisms. It is, underground, an entirely different biological ecosystem, and it has been running, largely without human input, for over 1,000 years. The scale of this is worth pausing on. Terra Preta is not a curiosity at a single site. Researchers have identified it at thousands of locations across the Amazon basin, covering thousands of hectares. Individual deposits range from small patches to enormous expanses embedded in complex pre-Columbian landscapes, complete with earthworks, terraced fields, and evidence of large permanent settlements. One site in the Upper Xingu alone holds an estimated 4,500 tons of anthropogenic carbon above background levels. This soil enabled something the landscape was not supposed to support: sedentary civilizations, dense populations, stable food systems, all built on one of the most ecologically hostile soils for agriculture on Earth. The conventional story has always been that the Amazon's infertility made large permanent settlements impossible. Terra Preta did not just challenge that story, it dismantled it entirely. So why did this system disappear? After 1492, the indigenous population of the Amazon collapsed. Smallpox, influenza, and other introduced diseases moved through communities that had no immunity. Entire populations were gone within a generation. The social infrastructure required to maintain large-scale charcoal production and organized waste accumulation, the elder knowledge, the community practice, the multi-generational investment, vanished with the people who carried it. At the same time, European contact introduced steel axes and an agricultural logic built around speed. Slash and burn was faster. Ash fertilization worked well enough in the short term. The slow, patient work of building soil over decades had no place in a world where communities were being destroyed and survivors were simply trying to endure. The knowledge was not banned. It was not deliberately suppressed by any single authority. It was erased by demographic catastrophe and replaced by something cheaper and faster. And the consequences of that replacement are visible across the Amazon today. The soil itself, however, survived. It kept working. It kept feeding people. Local farmers across Amazonia have prized these patches for generations, recognizing them by their dark color and their inexplicable productivity compared to everything around them. The soil outlasted the civilization that built it. In the 1960s, a small group of researchers began to take this seriously. Wim Sombroek, a Dutch soil scientist, was among the first to study Terra Preta systematically and recognize it not as a geological accident, but as a product of deliberate human activity. His work, along with later contributions from Bruno Glaser, William Woods, and teams publishing in journals including Nature Communications, established the scientific foundation for what we now understand about these soils. Modern replication studies have since confirmed the key mechanisms. Biochar alone improves nutrient retention, lowers soil acidity, and reduces leaching. When combined with organic matter and applied over time, not as a one-time treatment but as a practice, it produces soils that increasingly resemble the original Terra Preta profiles. These studies have also documented roughly 50% reductions in nitrous oxide emissions from biochar-amended soils, approximately 10% lower fertilizer requirements to achieve the same yields, and significantly reduced nutrient runoff into waterways. The concept now being tested globally is called Terra Preta Nova, New Dark Earth. Replicate the formation process using biochar and organic waste, applied over time, to restore degraded soils and build long-term carbon sinks. It is being evaluated across sub-Saharan Africa, Southeast Asia, and South America, regions where soil degradation is directly linked to food insecurity. Now here is what most people stop short of telling you. Because understanding this system is one thing, starting it is another, and the gap between those two is where most of this knowledge dies again. The good news is this: the process is not complicated. It does not require special equipment, permits, or a large piece of land. What it requires is a shift in how you think about organic waste. Instead of burning your prunings, fallen branches, and dry garden material in an open fire, which destroys the carbon, you char them. You want a low, smothered burn. Restrict the oxygen. A simple method is to pack dry, woody material tightly into a metal drum or barrel with a loose lid, light it from the top, and let it smolder slowly. When the smoke turns from white and thick to thin and clear, you are making biochar. Douse it with water before it ashes out completely. What is left, black, lightweight, porous, is your foundation material. That biochar on its own does very little immediately. This is the step most people get wrong. Raw biochar applied straight to a garden bed can actually draw nitrogen out of the soil in the short term because the microbial community rushes to colonize all that new surface area. You need to charge it first. Mix it with finished compost at roughly a 1-to-1 ratio by volume. Let it sit together for 2 to 4 weeks, turning it occasionally. The compost inoculates the biochar with microbial life and preloads it with nutrients. Now it is ready. Work this mixture into the top 6 to 8 inches of your growing beds at around 10 to 20% of total soil volume. Not all at once across the whole garden. Start with one bed, one patch, and observe. Add a fresh batch each season, gradually building the carbon concentration over time. This is the part that requires patience. You will not see dramatic results in the first season. By the second and third year, you will start noticing something shift. Better moisture retention after rain, darker soil color, stronger root development, fewer inputs needed to hit the same yields. That is the system working. That is what those soils in the Amazon have been doing, unattended, for 1,000 years. You are not recreating it overnight. You are starting it. And once started, it compounds. Save this video. The stages matter, and you will want to come back to them. A pre-Columbian civilization turned some of the worst soil on Earth into something so productive, it is still feeding people today. Over 1,000 years after the people who built it were gone. They did not have soil labs or carbon sequestration targets or agricultural extension offices. They had observation, patience, and a practice that compounded quietly across generations until the land itself became something extraordinary. The knowledge was not lost because it failed. It was lost because the people who held it were taken. That distinction matters, because it means the system itself is intact, documented, peer-reviewed, and available to anyone willing to work with the soil instead of against it. You do not need much to begin. A barrel, some dry wood, finished compost, and a garden bed. The science is behind you. The history already proved it works. The only question is whether you start this season or wait another 1,000 years for someone else to rediscover it.